Let me start by saying, if you came here today looking for a finite happening or answers to the masculine mystique, I apologize for your disappointment in advance. Today ain't got no answers, no filters or censors. Today ain't got no apologies or no bitterness. Today ain't holding yesterday. Today only got time for right here and now. This talk has no definitive ending or point of reconciliation, nor will it teach you anything absolute about queer masculinities. This talk is a fluid thing where we learn together. This talk is where two or more gather to praise the evolution of a people, culture, and being, adjusting to the unraveling death and birth of new language and untamed fantastical thought. This talk is a war on how we were forced to know gender, for the healing and future of our babies, and the ongoing creation of understanding our own skins. So here's a question. If you were to describe me to a friend without mentioning my name, what do you think you'd say? Would you say I was a black woman with short blonde hair and really good taste in suits? Good, because I really love this suit. Would you mention that I was tall, of a lighter complexion, and maybe even a bit masculine? Yes, you might. But it's not because you know who I am or what masculinity is. It's because most of us have been conditioned to think that anything society is deemed for men, including this suit, is inherently masculine. And that is the only explanation we're willing to accept. So how is it possible that I stand here as a woman claiming to be masculine? Well, I'm a queer black masculine woman, or what I like to call a masculiminal identity. This language is made up of reclaimed definitions of masculinity and liminality. Here's what I mean. Masculiminality is language I've created to talk about the queer existence of two or more gender energies like masculinity and femininity with strong emphasis on the masculine edges of the prism. I use this language to tailor conversations specific to the rebellious intersections of masculinity and womanhood. You may be thinking, is she actually masculine? Is that even possible? Is she just performing masculinity because deep down she wants to be a man? Is masculinity something you do, something you have, or something you are? If you have these questions, you're not alone. Because before I figured out who I am, I asked myself these very same things. Today I'm going to talk to you about how we frequently confuse manhood and masculinity and the violence it perpetuates against queer masculine identified women. Today I'm going to talk to you about my masculinity and how necessary it is to rethink how we understand masculinity as a whole and who we allow to be included in it. My identity as a queer masculine woman is not new. We've been here, existing in liminality, beneath and between the constructs of what it means to be a man or a woman. Let me start by saying, yes, men, you can still be masculine. This is an opportunity to expand masculinity. This isn't an attempt to take it from you. I promise you it won't melt away during this talk. Besides, we actually have a lot in common. We're both human. We look great in men's suits. And neither of us had to be taught how to do masculinity. It's always been innate. See, masculinity is energetic. It makes a home in us before we even know our own names, without respect for the sex, gender, or body of the person. Masculinity exists in all women, even those who present femininely. It commonly shows up in the energy of women athletes, construction workers, activists, even mothers. And that's just to name a few. So why is this so hard for us to see? It's because although masculinity doesn't discriminate on the body it manifests in, we like most cultures, have. The Oxford Dictionary's definition of masculinity is qualities or attributes regarded as characteristic of men. A typical definition across all dictionaries, and quite offensive to me. It's time we evolve to think beyond this language. It's time to reimagine masculinity. This reimagination starts with understanding the difference between being a man and being masculine, and how male privilege and masculine privilege are two different worlds. Being a man is an experience only a man would know. And as a woman, I personally would never speak on that. But masculinity manifests in all of us, making each and every one of our experiences valid to express. Male privilege is inherited by men who are assigned male at birth. This happens because of a system that reveres men as more important in society. Masculine privilege is the protection any masculine person has that causes us to blend in with the aforementioned system of male privilege. Masculine women having male privilege is a myth. Though many of us are afforded masculine privilege, women cannot inherit male privilege because we are still systemically marginalized for being women. So, how does this affect us as masculine women? Well, besides the clothing I like being irresponsibly displaced in the men's section at every store I ever go to, I am also left struggling to identify with the constructs of what it means to be a woman. Since we are conditioned to see men as the standard for masculinity and hyperfeminine women as the standard for womanhood, queer masculine identified women are silently pushed out for not fitting into these either-or narratives. Here's the thing. Contrary to popular belief, to be a masculine woman does not equate to a desire to be a man. I personally love learning more about my very peculiar version of womanhood every day. But I still, like many queer masculine identified women, feel unseen, underrepresented, and pushed out by normalized hyper-feminine subcultures of what it means to be accepted as a woman. The politics of acceptable gender performances are fed to us every day, attempting to teach us everything from who we should love to how we should be in our bodies. In media, masculinity and womanhood show up as exclusive, very separate ideologies. I mean, think about it. When's the last time you saw a queer masculine woman represented in a tampon commercial, as the face of women's hair or skin products, or featured in a birthing ad? Though we can admit that masculinity and womanhood are not monolithic, we still can't seem to fully accept that they'd also embody the same lived experience. For example, let's talk feminism, a major movement created for the liberation of all women. As I learn more about what feminism is, I'm seemingly left wondering who's really included in the all. Feminism's projected audience may be all women, but it seems to only represent a particular kind of woman. Due to very little representation of the unique experiences particular to masculine identified women, the politics of womanhood don't stretch far enough to reach us, often making us invisible altogether. Even the language of feminism itself seems problematic because it's still perpetuating that womanhood equates to femininity, exiling us from the movement itself. I don't believe that anyone, scholar or otherwise, can even engage women's studies without also including the nuanced experiences of masculine identified women. If you don't, you'll need to acknowledge your study of femme-presenting experiences only. No one can understand what it means to be, love, or protect women if you only understand womanhood to be feminine. The Me Too movement has also helped thousands of women feel seen worldwide, exposing the stories of their attackers that may have never seen justice before. But even as the movement grows, sexual assault against masculine identified women is a silent afterthought, seemingly because it doesn't fit the structure of what we think we know a victim to be. We acknowledge that feminine women are victims of sexual violences, But we pathologize queer masculine women's identities, deeming them unfit to be a victim because of their masculinity. The way masculinity has been adopted by the unattainable expectations of men has greatly impacted the ways we understand victimhood and the voices we silence as we uphold them. Many of us are still struggling to accept the fact that masculinity doesn't protect any of us from sexual violence, no matter where you are on the prism. I've been very honest about my experiences with masculinity, and I've shared a few different examples I see as perpetuating the invisibility of queer masculine identified women. At this point, you may be thinking, how can we better support non-normative womanhoods? First and foremost, we have to hold ourselves and the people around us accountable, acknowledging what we now know about masculinity. Masculinity in women is real, and queer masculine women would prefer to be received as whole individual experiences without our every move being conflated with manhood. These historically narrow definitions of masculinity have been a pervasive part of our culture. And it's easy to take as common sense when you haven't been exposed to ideas challenging them or people whose reality call for the revisiting of its definition. But once we begin to see the deeper nuances, we can't unsee them. We can explore masculinities via non-normative womanhoods and understand that masculinity is something bigger than the dictionary and the representations that we've been fed. It's time to reimagine masculinity. So when you leave this room to tell that one friend about this talk, you can be confident in mentioning my masculinity. Not because this talk has taught you who I am or what masculinity is, but because now you have the tools to ask more questions. Thank you.